The most powerful country in the world just humiliated its ally on live television. Imagine walking into a room, hoping for an ally, but instead, you find yourself surrounded by two bullies. That's exactly what happened to Ukraine President Zelensky when he stepped into the White House on February 28, 2025. He wasn't just dismissed, he was berated. He wasn't just questioned, he was pressured. And the people pressuring him, the President and Vice President of the United States, instead of offering support, they demanded submission. Instead of standing against Putin, they told Ukraine to make peace with the very man that invaded their country. This wasn't a diplomatic misstep. This was a betrayal, a shift in American policy, one that left its allies wondering, can we still trust the United States? In the aftermath, world leaders swiftly condemned the White House's actions and rallied behind President Zelensky. These declarations underscored a collective reaffirmation of support for Ukraine amidst escalating tensions. In response to the White House incident, European leaders convened in London to strategize support for Ukraine. The summit focused on increasing defense spending, providing military aid, and proposing a one-month truce between Ukraine and Russia to facilitate de-escalation. The Oval Office confrontation and subsequent US actions have led European leaders to question America's reliability as an ally. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer highlighted the need for Europe to take responsibility for its defense during a summit in London addressing Russia's actions in Ukraine.
We're gathered here today because this is a once-in-a-generation moment for the security of Europe, and we all need to step up. Getting a good outcome for Ukraine is not just a matter of right and wrong. It's vital for the security of every nation here, and many others too.
And German Chancellor Friedrich Merz stressed that Europe must develop stronger defense capabilities to avoid sole reliance on the United States. Further straining transatlantic relations, the United States recently aligned with Russia in voting against a European-backed UN resolution condemning Russian aggression in the Ukraine. The unprecedented move marked a significant departure from previous US positions and left European allies dismayed. For decades, the world operated under a simple assumption. When crisis erupted, the United States would lead. But after the confrontation between Trump, Vance, and Zelensky, that assumption is beginning to collapse. America's closest allies are no longer just worried about the future of their partnership, they're taking action. Europe isn't waiting for the United States anymore, it's moving forward in its own way. In the days following the White House meeting, European leaders wasted no time. Behind closed doors, discussions shifted from how to bring the United States back into the fold to how to move forward without it. European nations, long accustomed to relying on Washington for military leadership, are now taking matters into their own hands. This is no longer just about Ukraine. This is about Europe securing its own future. One of the most significant developments is the European Sky Shield Initiative, an ambitious plan to create an integrated air defense system across the continent. With 23 nations already on board, the goal is clear. Europe must be able to defend itself, with or without US support. And it's not stopping there. The European Union has also proposed a multi-billion euro program to strengthen its defense industry, ensuring that the weapons and technology needed to maintain security come from within Europe, not from American manufacturers. For the first time in modern history, European nations are openly discussing what was once unthinkable, a future where NATO still exists, but American influence within it is diminished. This isn't just a policy shift, this is a historic realignment.
The real question in front of us is whether Europe is prepared to act as decisively as the situation dictates, and whether Europe is ready and able to act with speed and with the ambition that is needed. In the various meetings in the last few weeks, most recently 2 days ago in London, the answer from European capitals has been as resounding as it is clear. We are in an era of rearmament, and Europe is ready to massively boost its defense spending, both to respond to the short-term urgency to act and to support Ukraine, but also to address the long-term need to take on more responsibility for our own European security.
And it's not just Europe making adjustments. Canada, one of America's closest allies, is also taking steps to strengthen its partnerships across the Atlantic. While the US debates the future of its support for Ukraine, Canada has already made its decision. Defense Minister Bill Blair has announced additional military aid, including the delivery of more F-16 flight simulators to help train Ukraine pilots. And Canada isn't stopping there. Recognizing the uncertainty of America's long-term commitment to NATO, Canada is investing in European-led defense projects. It has joined new European air defense initiatives and is working closely with France, Germany, and the UK to enhance long-term military cooperation. These moves send a clear signal. Even America's closest neighbors are preparing for a world where Washington no longer takes the lead. The irony of Trump's America's First policy is that it is leaving America more isolated than ever before. While he tells his supporters that the US doesn't need global alliances, its allies are forging ahead without it. European defense officials are now actively planning for a world where Washington cannot be relied upon. NATO summits are being planned with an unspoken understanding that the alliance must prepare for a scenario where the United States either withdraws completely or becomes a reluctant participant. This isn't just a possibility, it's becoming a strategy. For decades, American leadership was the cornerstone of global stability. But today, the world is adapting to a different reality. Europe is no longer waiting. Canada is diversifying. Asia is looking elsewhere. And as America turns inward, its closest allies are beginning to prepare for a world where Washington is no longer at the center. The biggest winners in this shift, Russia and China. The more the United States isolate itself, the more room it gives for Russia and China to expand their influence. This isn't just about Ukraine. This is about whether the United States can still be trusted as the leader of the free world, or if that leadership is slipping away for good. For nearly a century, the world looked to America for leadership. But today, the world is looking elsewhere. Europe is no longer waiting for the United States. And as America drifts further from its allies, the question remains, who will lead the free world now?